Hey folks, Johnny Worth. Welcome to the full first episode of the Totally Obsessed podcast. Today, Skybusters and Shotcallers. Well, I work on my turkey fan, which I'll show you as I get through here. Right now we're not doing so well, but we're doing great. We've got the fan getting ready to be glued down. I've got the wings done, and we'll look at it periodically as we progress through this episode. So bear with me. I want to make sure that's looking good. All right. So we already talked about Totally Obsessed in that first little blurb, and I know I've owed y'all this episode for at least 3 weeks now. And I picked Skybusters and Shotcallers as the first episode because why not talk about everybody's least favorite person in the marsh, and also a lot of people's least favorite person to be in the blind, because at the end of the day, the shot caller can be the savior, or they can be the reason we don't kill any birds. So let's get into it. So first of all, we've got skybusting. Well, anybody who's been waterfowling for more than a day probably knows what a skybuster is. And that's someone who's taken shots at birds that are not only outside of an ethical range, but they're probably not going to hit them anyways. And why is this a problem? Well, one, it ruins the hunt for everybody else that's out there in the marsh just trying to get their birds. And also, you're educating and flaring birds that might have actually come in had you waited and been patient. And guess what? If they don't want to come in, whatever. Leave them alone. Obviously, something you're doing with your hide or your decoys or something is just not right and they don't like it. And so instead of skybusting birds, why not adjust? Move your decoys, check your hide, call more, call less, do something besides, oh, it's 80 yards up there, I can hit it. Yeah, no. Now, I've made the joke before because I've taken some questionable shots at birds. And who hasn't? But to be honest, if you pull up and it's going to be a skybust, you pull up, you boom, and you drop that bird. Is it skybusting or is it precision long-range shooting? I think the argument can be made both ways. Oh, BB went through there. But I think we all need to do better as hunters and stop skybusting. Now, is that going to be hard to do? Yeah. Because are there definitely birds that just don't want to work and you're frustrated because you want to go home empty-handed, so you take shots you shouldn't? Yeah, it happens. But I think we should all make it a point to do better. Why not? We can do better, right? Now, private ground, you still shouldn't do it, but you have less of an impact. But when you're on public ground and everybody's working and fighting over the same birds, man, if they're not working, leave them alone. Try the next day, change something up, come back with a better attitude, because if all you're going to do is go out to the marsh just to hunt and skybust, you're giving yourself a bad look, nobody likes you, and you're messing up everybody else's hunt, because guess what? Maybe someone's got that recipe that day with the decoys placed the right way. Or they've got better calling, or less calling, or their hide's better, or maybe they just did a better job scouting and they know where the birds want to be. I don't know. So, really, at the end of the day, it is one of the unspoken rules of public land that you don't skybust. If birds aren't working, they're not working. Grow up, get over it. Eventually, you'll figure out how to routinely or consistently kill birds on public land, and that all boils down to scouting, your hide, your decoy placement, and maybe doing something that everybody else isn't doing. Because if everybody's screaming at the birds with a highball or trying to pretend like they're on stage, well, maybe if you quiet down and call less, now you're shooting ducks at 20 yards or 10 yards instead of skybusting at 70, 80 yards. But not that I advocate for skybusting, but there are things you can do to have a longer effective range on waterfowl. Now that's not 70, 80 yards. That's 50, maybe even 60. If you're running a long range choke with premium shells and you've taken the time to practice and practice and practice, and you're used to shooting clays at a long distance, okay, maybe it's not so much sky busting and you're doing a little bit more of the precision long range shooting. Now, does that mean you should do it? No. But is there things you can do to increase your success when those birds don't want to work in past 40 to where you can still leave the marsh with a couple? Yeah, there are. But really, at the end of the day, we should be focused on doing everything we can to bring the birds in close and not be taking those stupid long shots. Besides, how are you supposed to get it on video when they're 70 yards out there? It just doesn't look great. Shoot them at 30, at 20, at 10. Hell, shoot them when they're feet down in the decoys and you're worried you're going to shoot your expensive decoys that you paid way too much money for because you just had to have the latest, greatest, newest, coolest stuff. But I don't know. Now, the other part of this conversation is the shot caller, right? Every group's got one or two guys or girls that call the shot for everybody. Now, normally they're most experienced, or if nobody's got experience, or whoever's just getting picked for the day. And there's a happy medium because you're either the hero of the day because you called shots perfectly for the majority of your group, the majority of the morning, or you're the zero because guess what? Your shot calling was awful. None of the birds were actually finishing. You called it too early, you called it too late, and everybody's pissed. Well, guess what? That's part of it. You just kind of learn as you go, and over the years, you'll accumulate the necessary skills and timing and everything that goes along with being the shot caller to where you're making everybody in your group happy most of the time. Now, let's say that there's a day where all the birds seem to want to finish on one side. Well, there's a couple things you can do. You can adjust the decoys to try to get them to move to the other side of the decoys or center up better. Or you can just swap out where everybody's sitting in the blind, right? If you're using layouts, you can swap layouts. If you're using A-frames, you can just swap who's sitting where in the layout or cushion in the A-frame. But at the end of the day, little things like that, if you don't want to move the decoys, like if the birds are just working perfectly and you don't want a chance messing them up because you move the decoys, right? What you got works. Change where everybody's sitting in the blind. It doesn't hurt nothing. Besides, party hunting's illegal. So once I kill my 8 Canadas or my 6 ducks, me sitting on the hot side doesn't do anything for anyone. Now, the other thing to think about is where do we put the shot caller? Do they put them in the middle? Put them on the side? Kind of somewhere in between? Personally, being the shot caller for my group most of the time, I prefer to sit somewhere in the middle. But the other part of that is I'm also the guy with the dog. And so being the guy with the dog, I'm normally sitting on the left-hand side if we're in an A-frame. But if we're running layouts, well, then I get a little more freedom because I can be almost in the center and put my dog Newt's blind behind me. I'm good to go. And if you've got guys that are new, put them near the shot caller so they can hear you. Because one of the running jokes in our blind is shoot fast or shoot last. Because as soon as I call that shot, guess what? My gun's going off. So, and, you know, some people have a problem with that. Like, oh, da, 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 da. Well, guess what? Shoot fast or shoot last. So, we're going to bounce around a little bit in this because it's the first one, and I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do this. It'd be a little easier if I had someone I could bounce these off of, but I don't. But that's okay. Let's see how we're doing with this turkey fan while we're... Yeah. Starting to come together. while we're working on this, which, something to think about is taxidermy, which, real quick, I don't want to get too much into it. Let's adjust this camera a little bit. Getting birds mounted is expensive, and I've seen on social media this new trend, which who knows if it's true, if it's just new to me, or it's getting more exposure now that more people are doing it, but I really like the idea of pulling all the different feathers off the different birds and turning them into pictures. Because this is it's easier. I don't have to worry about curing things. I just wash the feathers, clip them all off, and then I get to play like it's a big puzzle and put this all back together. It's a lot of fun so far. I don't want to pull my hair out yet. But yeah, let's jump back to Skybusters real quick. Is the lack of etiquette or the prevalence of skybusting, especially on public ground, a product of the generation? A lack of mentors showing them how to do it, and kids kind of just watching a YouTube video or seeing an Instagram post and thinking, I really want to be a duck hunter or a goose hunter or a crane hunter. So we, as a community, need to take the time to figure out, how do we fix this? Because obviously shaming hasn't worked, because we've been calling skybusters out for years. Guess what? People still skybust. So put that in the comments. How you think we as a community can do better about not being skybusters and teaching the new generation of hunters to also not be skybusters. Because unfortunately, in my experience, a lot of these young hunters, and the older ones too, just think they know everything, and they're just the coolest thing since sliced bread, and you can't tell them nothing, and if you try, you're just going to get balked at. And it's like, whatever. But at the same time, it's a problem. And so we can't just keep saying whatever, because that's not going to fix the problem. So I think having an honest conversation in the community is the way that we make this better. Talking about ethical range and ethical shots and proper shot calling technique, and just educating people that, look, if the birds aren't working, maybe they're just super pressured and educated, and it doesn't matter what you're going to do. You know what? Just sit back and enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that you're out in the marsh or out in the field and not stuck on the couch. And you'll get them back the next day or the next weekend. Instead of taking shots you shouldn't take, crippling birds, wounding birds. That's another thing. If you don't have a dog or a boat, should you really be taking long shots at birds where you're probably going to have a really hard time recovering them? Probably not. Now, I get it. Not everybody can afford a boat. Not everybody can afford a high-speed, high-dollar hunting dog. Totally understand. I get it. I don't have a boat. I used to. But I have a canoe. I have 2 trained retrievers. But I'm also almost 40 years old and have a full-time job, and I have a little bit of money that I can spend on waterfowling. But again, back to the skybusting, if you don't have a way to readily retrieve birds, you definitely should not be taking long shots, because what's the chances that you cripple that bird and then it moves far away from where you originally thought it landed? You're just wasting the resource. So again, a lot of this talk is, when it comes to skybusting versus shot callers, is protecting the resource. Like, yeah, the pintail limit went up to 3. But what about all the other species of ducks that aren't maybe doing so well? I think we somewhat owe it as a respect to the ducks and the geese and the cranes to do better as a group, as a whole, when it comes to being more ethical with our shots, taking the time, practicing, doing as much as we can to mitigate the number of birds that we're losing because of poor shooting habits or taking long shots that we really probably shouldn't be taking. But again, I've been there. I've done it. Not proud of it. But I'm not going to be the pot calling the kettle black either. So, let's do better. Now, back to shot callers. There's only 2 ways to become a better shot caller. Actually, there's only one. And that's just doing it. Which means us old guys, I've been doing waterfowl for well over 20 years at least. Us old guys need to take the time to show these new guys how and why we call the shots when we do. And let them mess up. Like, yeah, we might not shoot as many birds that day, but the only way they're going to learn is if we take the time to teach them. I'm an air traffic controller by trade. Guess what? Air traffic controllers don't just come out of the academy and can magically work airplanes. They can't. So someone has to be their trainer that works on their ticket, right? When I have a trainee in position with me, if something goes wrong, even though the trainee might have done it, the developmental may have been the reason that a mistake was almost made, it's my job to fix it. But the only way they see that is if we give them the opportunity to fail. So maybe as a group, we need to take these young folk under our wing and let them fail. Because guess what? If we don't get a good volley into a group of birds, it's not the end of the day. There's always tomorrow. There's always next season. But we're going to help to protect the resource and have better hunts because there's not as many people out there sky busting and screwing everything up for everybody. All right? I think we can do that. So, as we continue along talking about this, I've got episodes planned, right? I got ideas, thoughts, and concepts, things I want to talk about. But I really want to give you all, the audience, the opportunity to give some input on what you want me to talk about or what you want to have a conversation about. So this isn't just me sitting here and selfishly being like, well, here's what I want to talk about, so here's what we're going to talk about. I think there's a lot of things we can talk about as a group to start on as conversations and make this whole waterfowl world a better place. All right, check this out. It's not perfect. It's the first one I've ever done, but I like it so far. Now, this is just a black canvas from Hobby Lobby. And so, yeah, it works great. Didn't have to use any paint. I got some ideas for what I want to do up on these corners. I'm not doing the traditional with where it's like everything's covered by every little feather you can cut off a turkey. Like, no thanks. I got better things to do. So, but back to the main topic at hand. Skybusters and Shotcallers. There's something to be said about ethics and ego. And we need to get away from letting our ego guide us while we hunt. Because guess what? At the end of the day, nobody cares how many birds you shot. What we care about is how many birds we individually shot as people. And whether that's right, wrong, whatever, not here to debate that. I mean, we could. But point being, there are there is more to waterfowl hunting than shooting limits. Don't get me wrong, it feels great. The pictures are awesome, and it gets lots of wonderful, tasty, delicious food. But just because you shoot limits every day, yeah, you're probably a little bit better hunter, but there's more to life than shooting limits. And I think we as a community need to get away from measuring success based on how many limits are laying in the pile picture at the end of the day. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm out of touch. I don't know. You tell me. I shoot plenty of limits. So it's not a, oh, well, I can't shoot limits, so let's go ahead and talk about not worrying about shooting limits. Like, look, a day in the duck blind, shooting nothing, is better than any day at work. Ooh. Here. I don't know. I kind of like this. Obviously, there's some more feathers. Where are they at? These ones are going to go up here to cover that. And then I've got another baggie of feathers that I'm going to do this little pattern over the middle here. But I think I like this. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. Although, I think I'm going to switch these feathers out right here. But yeah, ego. It's kind of like ego lifting, right? Seeing guys and gals in the gym that are lifting way more weight than they should be. Just because they want to, I don't know. I don't even know why you want to lift that much weight. I mean, don't get me wrong. I used to lift. I used to ego lift. But I think we can do better. Get away from it. As far as ego hunting, right? Yeah, everybody wants to shoot limits. Everybody wants to be the cool guy with a great post on Instagram or Facebook or whatever your chosen social media medium is. But at the end of the day, as long as you had fun, whether you kill 1 duck or 6 ducks or everybody in your group kills 6 ducks, it doesn't matter. As long as you had fun, that's what it's all about. Enjoying the great outdoors. Yeah, we're going to do that. Where's my nippers? There. Now, something else to think about is we're talking about shooting limits. Do you sit in the marsh all day trying to fill your limit? Or do we call knock it off by a certain time to give the birds in the marsh a rest? Personally, I think we need to give birds a rest. Let them not be sitting all day getting busted up to where they're just absolutely gun shy for the rest of the week because they've just been hammered on all day with no break from the action. I think we need to do better. And I don't want to see the state come in and go, oh, we're going to limit hunting. Because I'm not about that. We don't need the state involved in our sport any more than they already are. Like, I'm good on that. But we as hunters can sit there and say, okay, we're not going to try to beat the birds up until, we're not going to sit in the marsh all day to try to fill a limit. We're going to do better and give these birds a break. Because if you think about it, especially like for us in Oklahoma, like the southern states, shoot, by the time they get down here, they've been beat up from Canada all the way down to Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas. Give them a break. Now, I understand guides. You gotta get the birds for your clients. And that's not giving them a pass to hunt all day. But maybe we give them a little more leniency as to, maybe you can sit out there till 2. Of course, if you're hunting on private ground, which most guides are, Whatever. You want to blow your field up or blow your private marsh up? Pfft, do it. Because you know what's going to happen? All those ducks are going to find somewhere else to go. So, public ground, let's give them a break. Private ground, you do you, boo-boo. But I don't want to hear you crying when you ain't got no birds to shoot because you've just piss-pounded the shit out of them for the last month or the last week, and now nothing wants to come to your glory hole. But then you're going to get the argument of, well, they've got heated impoundments, and they're, you know, all this ag and the flooded cornfield just basically baiting. Well, we can whine and cry about it for those of us that don't have it, or you got to walk the extra mile or drive the extra hour. You got to do something to separate yourself from the hunters that won't go the extra mile to find the birds or to find less pressured birds. So, I don't know, something to think about. Now, story time. So, many years ago, we were hunting at Montrose Public Hunting Area, I forget the full name, in central Missouri. This is back when I smoked cigarettes. And we were sitting in a blind, and I had walked out to pick up a dead duck, shotgun in one hand, cigarette in the other, and the guys started calling at birds. I was like, oh. So I got real still and just stood in the middle of literally in the middle of the marsh and hunkered down a little bit. Still smoking my cigarette. And I look up, here's this lone greenhead way up there. Skybusting. But anyways, I look up, and I look at the guys in the blind. This duck's not coming down. So cigarette in one hand, shotgun in the other, taking a drag, and I was like, screw it. Boom! I folded that mallard. Yep. They were all like, wow! Because it was way up there. Now it's skybusting, which is what I'm advocating against. 1,000%. But is it still a fun story? Yes. But the moral of the story is, don't skybust. Now, on the other end of skybusting is another story. So we were hunting geese, laying in the decoys, in a wheat field, in Oklahoma, and the geese were working in super tight. Like, we're talking like these geese were feet down on our boots. Like, you could have beat them out of the air with a broom. About the second flock that did that, one of the gentlemen in our group had a goose literally on the end of his barrel. And I will never forget, but old Richard calls out, "They're too close!" And so now that's the running joke, especially when people miss decoying birds, is, "They're too close!" Like, it's a good time. But that's about all I got on this one. I'm sure there's some finer details I could have worked out had I actually sat down and wrote out a script, but I'm trying not to do that. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel real. I'm not here to lecture. I'm here to talk about hunting and fishing in the outdoors. And so we're not going to have a script. We'll have an idea what we're going to talk about on these episodes, but we're just going to kind of shoot from the hip. Because why not? Maybe eventually, if I decided to record these on the weekend or something, I'll actually have some guests. I've got some people you probably want to hear from that I could pull onto the podcast. But I will say this, if you've made it this far, I appreciate you for sticking it out and listening. I'd also ask that you, here after a little while, I'm sure I'll get it up on the website. We've got stickers, lots of stickers. And, uh-oh, this is not good. We're doing stickers. We'll have t-shirts, hats, koozies, all those fun things eventually. But once I get them up on the website, I'll let y'all know. Really like for y'all to pick some up and rep the Totally Obsessed brand. Help us to grow, help us to gain more market share so people know about us, know what we're doing, what we're producing, trying to bring more fun and excitement, talk about it. Also, once season gets here, we'll obviously have waterfowl content, starting with the early season hunts, and then we'll also have deer hunts, hog hunts, thermal hog hunts. Thermal hog hunts are going to come first because that's what we're doing right now. So once I get that footage edited up, those will be posted up on the page. So really, you just got to hang out and keep checking out and listening. And yeah, sorry. Got to send a picture of my work so far. We'll probably edit that out. All right, let's see where we're at here. All right, got these feathers done. These go over here. I'll save these just in case. Those wing feathers over here. Set that. Oh. All right, come over here. Grab these wing feathers. Put them back in their bag. Now, you know what? Let's do a little. So I messed up when I was doing this. This is the first time I've done it. I didn't clip these wing feathers maybe as good as I should have. And so they sit up a little higher than the ones over here because I was like, oh, hey, I can clip these. That'll make more sense. Well, first time, live and you learn. So now we get to set up the fan, the other fan, the smaller, the secondary fan. Make this look. Sorry, I had to take a little break from filming to answer a phone call. So, where'd we leave off? We've talked about ego hunting and shot calling and skybusters, and subscribe and like, comment, make suggestions of what you want to hear. Maybe you agree with my opinion, maybe you disagree with my opinions. I'd love to hear it. Because the only way, like I said earlier, that we actually make meaningful progress is to actually get things out in the open air and talk about it. Now, I'm not saying we got to sit down and have a powwow and talk about our feelings. Definitely not saying that. But if we have an open conversation about the things that are wrong in the waterfowling world and how we can fix them, I think this ends up being a much better place for both new and old hunters. So, yeah. And I'm going to keep working on this turkey fan because I think this thing is awesome. I'm kind of just ad-libbing as I go because I've never done this before, as stated at least 4 times up to this point. But it's a good time. No, never will I ever have an arts and crafts with Thermal Jesus channel. But you know, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Oh, this one's got to go over here. Hush. If you hear my dog whining, that's my Maine retriever Newt, and he's all pissy because one of our females is in heat, and she's kenneled up and he can't get to her, so he's just been having a fit for the last 3 days. It's the one part of having intact dogs. They are annoying. But we love them. And unfortunately, my last trained retriever, I never got a puppy out of. And that ain't gonna happen again because she was a phenomenal dog. Her name was Tox. Which, you know what? That's where we'll go now. Retrievers. Okay. Yes, you can go spend thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to get a fully trained, finished retriever that is your loyal hunting companion and a great family member. But is it necessary to spend that much money? No. There are plenty of books out there that'll help you to take a retriever that has good genetics. Okay, obviously we need to start with a good base in order to make a quality retriever. But you don't have to spend $3,000 on a puppy to have a phenomenal retriever. I think Newt was $800, and then I went to Alaska for the summer to fish, and he went to a trainer for 4 months, and he's an absolute monster. He's a beast of retriever, a lot of natural hunting ability. Our other female that's fully trained, she's currently at Dead Duck Retrievers in Washington, Oklahoma, getting trained up. But I have plenty of friends who have trained their own retrievers, like Luke and his dog Jeb, which if you check our social media, our Instagram or our Facebook for Totally Obsessed, Jeb is on there. And Luke trained Jeb himself. So, can you train a phenomenal retriever not being a professional dog trainer? Yes, you can. But it takes time and dedication and a willingness to want to bang your head against the wall when they're not getting it, and also take the time to help them learn the things they're not quite understanding. Because a retriever knows what to do. They'll go pick stuff up, right? But if you want to bring it back to you every time, be steady to the shot every time, that takes effort. Which, if you're going to be taking extended range shots, not skybusting, but just maybe a little bit longer than normal, and then you're in an area where it wouldn't be hard to lose a duck that you cripple, having a well-trained retriever makes it a little better. It's still not a great thing to be doing, but it makes it a little better. So, but at the end of the day, if you just don't take shots you shouldn't be taking, it definitely reduces the likelihood that you're going to cripple birds and lose them and waste the precious resource that we all fight each other over in the marsh. So I guess long story short, when it comes to skybusters, let's all do a better job of being good stewards of the resource and try to stop skybusting. I think we can do it. But we got to have that conversation with people, and you also got to be a big enough person to not get all butthurt when someone calls you out for some nonsense. So, when it comes to shot calling, my final thoughts on shot calling, you just have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to screw up, get laughed at, made fun of, maybe not shoot as many birds as you could have because, well, you called the shot too early, or you called the shot too late, or you didn't call the shot at all because you thought they were out of range, but they weren't. It happens, but we figure it out in time. So, but to close this thing out, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this video, to listen to this podcast. I hope you subscribe. I hope you like it. I hope you comment. And yeah, the next one will be probably better put together and a lot more interesting. But until then, I'm Johnny Worth, aka Thermal Jesus. This is the Totally Obsessed Podcast, and have a great day. I almost forgot. There's the finished product. Well, this part anyways. We're still going to do a little bit more up here and over here. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a great day.